Yeah.
No, but I'm
I
going to
w-
turn mine off.
I was gonna say the only thing I hear is
Mine's
Joe's
blowing the other way,
machine.
so I'm hoping that you don't get the feedback from the fan.
Oh, I've got two of them blowing on me right now. It's 90 degrees in my office.
Oh my god.
Damn.
His AC went
It
out.
is
I
20, it is 23 degrees in my office. No,
Celsius. Yeah,
yes.
we need to point that out for us.
No, the metric the rest of the world uses.
That's why we're the best. No, I'm kidding. We're not going
Yeah.
to.
Told you, American.
Funny
Yeah.
fact.
We're
Don't make
Um,
me
little off
vomit.
sometimes.
Yeah.
We've actually broken a record this summer in terms of the hottest summer on record. So in Moncton, so the city I live in, going back 30 years, on average, we would have about 5 days that would go over 30 degrees Celsius before humidity. So we would average out 5-ish days for the past 30 years. This summer we had 23.
Really?
It's been like 35 to 42 degrees Celsius for the past like month and a half.
It's been 5 weeks since it's over.
In my office, jail.
Sorry.
I was gonna say it's been like 110 here, like 6 days in a row.
Yeah.
I was
Where do
gonna
you-
say it's been like
Where do you all live?
Fort Worth, literally devil
Oh.
country.
I'm at a cool 70 right now here in good old Staten Island, New York.
I mean,
Sitting
my,
at
my
63 in
AC is
upstate.
working, so I have
Good
a
for you.
wonderful 70 degrees inside right now, so we're good.
And Nate's ready to kill all of us right
Yeah.
now. He's just like you guys are. Yeah, I'm sure it's nice and cold. Grab an ice pack.
And he's using the Zelda wallpaper. Let me just change.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like, oh, my car says it's 111. I get home, I walk in, and 90 felt refreshing walking in the door. And then I get in my bedroom, I have a little weather station there, and it was like it's 105 on the porch. And I look at the other number, and it's 88 in my bedroom, and it's just been going up since I've been home.
If you want to grab an ice pack from the freezer or something like that, put it in the small of your back, you know,
I got ice right here, and well, oh, I had ice. Never mind.
that'll help. There you go. Just numb it. It'll be fine.
Num 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 num.
And change
Alright.
the lights accordingly.
Okay. Any questions on the show notes real quick? I apologize for our delay and getting sidetracked. We're really good at getting sidetracked. You'll see that. But any questions,
I am
anything
a
like
nerd.
that?
I have none.
Okay.
You guys have a very experienced podcast host here, so we're good.
best friends?
Joe, oh come on.
What did I do?
What I miss?
It's just the way the cookies crumbled here.
Oh, with the thing?
Yeah,
I'll put it off to the side a little bit more.
I'm fine.
Here, let's.
The thing did the thing with the thing.
People are gonna think I'm yeah.
So many things.
We're all
Move the
guests.
thing
We're all
around with the
guests.
thing.
There we go.
We just become best friends? Yep.
Perfect. I love it. It's great. Tap the zap. Thank you very much, Matt. You're the best. All right.
I know. I try.
All right. We're already recording. We're rolling already. Who wants to do the opener? Dr. Williams, you're fantastic.
I can do it. Let me just pull it up. You would think I'd come prepared to these things.
It's actually in the show notes. It's right at the top. Number 2. I made it.
Hyperlinked.
Yeah.
It is hyperlinked. Oh,
Joe-
good job, Joe.
Joe got fancy.
I'm thinking of you guys. And this was rushed. I was doing a lot of work in the garage and everything today, and I got done. I apologize to everybody for the late show
Don't
notes,
say
but
you don't say those things, Joe. You just run with it.
oh, I ran with it, but
It's like-
I added a hyperlink. So
It's the greatest thing I ever learned in band class in high school. If you make a mistake, make sure nobody knows about it. Just keep barreling through,
Or don't play your instrument. It'll be
or
fine.
just don't,
just pretend.
or just-
I mean, that's why there's more than one. I mean,
right, or just don't play slide trombone in high school and get made fun of for 2 years. Anyway, moving on. Podcast.
Just want to make sure, Anthony, your last name is pronounced Bean, right?
Like bean, like lima bean, green bean, jelly bean. Jelly's the best. I will hurt you if you disagree.
All right.
Wow.
Just
love
want to
it.
make sure.
Starburst, like the Starburst jelly beans. Oh my god, they're so good.
They are. I agree.
I'm
we
scared to
get sidetracked.
disagree.
I disagree. You see what happens.
All right, Joe, you still want us to do the clap for the marker?
Please.
All right. Silence that and silence that. All right, so everyone ready on 1, 2, 3. Hello, and thank you for joining us once again for the Guardians MH podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. Goku, and with me tonight I have Joe,
Hey.
Nate,
Hello.
and Matt.
Hey, hey.
If you're joining us for the first time, Guardians MH is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on promoting mental health awareness throughout the gaming community and being a first step in assisting individuals with gathering meaningful resources in a safe and inclusive atmosphere. Our podcast is another way to normalize talking about mental health and is a fusion of mental health topics and gaming. So tonight, I have the honor of welcoming our guest, the video game doc, Dr. Anthony Bean. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fantastic. How's everyone else doing?
Other than the
Great.
heat, great.
Melting.
Yeah, before the show, Nate was mentioning that his office is what, a boiler room now?
Yeah, it's 32C, 90 degrees. My AC decided it wanted to give up the ghost today.
And living in California is not the best of idea for your AC to be breaking.
So good time. I might just melt away in this chair before your very eyes.
I mean, you have flannel on the back of your chair too. That can't be good for your back.
All for show. It's actually not flannel. It's t-shirt material.
You sit on a throne of lies, sir.
But it looks so
Misdirection.
rustic. I dig it. Now we know your secrets, but no. Dr.
Yeah, stick into that.
Dr. B, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We've had so much fun talking with you before the show and leading up to it. It's just been a blast, and it was such an honor getting to meet you at PAX East this past year, the last hurrah of PAX's before everything went belly up with COVID and no events and everything. Yep, there's you signed a book to our clinical director, Dr. Williams, right here with the
I am drinking a lot of
best-
maple syrup, and I'm defending against mooses.
That was the best signed to I've ever seen in a book. And I'll tell you what, when I took a picture and told him about it and sent it to him, I could tell how much joy it brought him. And I know when you wrote it, you were cracking up while you were writing it. So it's just, it was so much fun. And your books are great. And just thank you so much. This is such an honor.
Oh, thank you so much for supporting them and everything. It's kind of what we're trying to do is support as much as we can in our community, gaming community, and anywhere else that we can work with mental health and helping just basically anyone that we can.
Right on. Yeah, we can definitely relate with that 100%.
100%.
Why don't you tell, some people might not know who you are and what you do. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and, share with us what you do?
So, not a problem. So I am what they call a licensed depth, as in deep, not death. I work with death sometimes, but depth, as in deep, psychologist. And so what I do here in Texas is I work with geeks, gamers, nerds, pretty much anyone that's on the spectrum that plays video games, D&D, watches anime, reads manga, goes and helps out in lots of different areas of board games and everything like that to really help understand themselves through the characters they play, the games they choose to play, and also what can we learn these different lessons from. I'm also the executive director of the Tilos Project, which is a 501c3 down here in Fort Worth, Texas as well. So I know your guys' growing pains very, very well on everything. We do a lot of psychological assessment therapy. Our main focus is autism and on the spectrum to do testing. Probably 80% of our testing batteries are actually autism batteries, and we're one of the few places in about 150 mile radius that takes pretty much everyone's insurance. And yeah, we pretty much fight for everyone. We have Spanish speaking clinicians, we have sliding scales, we have everything known to man to get people into mental health to see to see the benefit of therapy. And we can definitely say that we see massive change and a lot of good people with this. This type of model of what we've done for is give it back to everyone, make sure that we can survive on what we have, but also basically just do what we can for our communities around us. It can go on if you want.
That's amazing.
Do you have time to sleep? I'm just curious.
So there are nights I do get sleep, but generally I function really well with about 7 hours is my functionality.
Okay. No, that's amazing. That
7's a nice round number.
It's a lucky number.
Yeah, it's a lucky number. No, but that's just amazing, everything that you do. And for me to hear that you accept every insurance, that's huge. That's a social worker's dream to hear somebody say that. Because it's like, oh, great. I don't have to fight you.
Correct.
Every insurance and a sliding scale. Like,
right.
That's the yellow brick road. Like, that's amazing.
That's the dream.
To kind of give an idea of like everything that we do, we take some insurances here that no one takes because they pay terrible, but that's fine because we that's why other insurances supplement and everything evens out in the end. Mm-hmm. But even if someone was to, let's say with our sliding scale, go and get a self-pay rate at somewhere else, at like a neuropsychologist, someone can pay out of their own pocket, they would still pay less with us and get the same amount, if not better, report than if they went in a different place. And that's our hope, that's our goal. And so we've connected and ingrained ourselves very heavily in the community, and we're on like tons of different mental health panels for the city of Dallas and Fort Worth to just help basically flow everything as much as we can to a lot of the kids, a lot of everything.
Are you hiring?
we have expanded so crazily fast. Like I started this nonprofit with my wife, who's also a clinical psychologist. We started this in 2016, April of 2016, and we are now 4 years into it. And it started with me just doing part-time psych batteries for the state, and now we have 16 full-time employees. 10 of them are clinicians. And we started off in this little 200 square foot office, and we are bursting at the seams at a 3,400 square foot office right now. and we don't have any room to grow into because I don't want to deal with our landlords any longer. And so we're working on saving up to buy a building at the end of our lease.
Very nice. Very nice.
Because it's something that's so important, that accessibility for people to have mental health. And a lot of people will not seek out either therapy or either evaluations because they feel it's too expensive, they don't feel their insurances are going to cover it, or their insurance just doesn't cover it at all or almost not enough. I've dealt with clients that with insurance companies that pay like 2.5 sessions. Like you're not gonna do much with 2 sessions.
Yeah, not gonna get far with that.
Not very far.
Not at all.
That's
an intake.
If you're lucky, with some of them, we've been fairly, I think, lucky to be able to figure out and crack the different, we call them the insurance codes, and make relationships with the right people on the insurance level, because this is all insurance talk now at this point, but anyone
that's my fault. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Anyone who calls in for, like, if you try to get benefits for someone, all those people on the lower level, they just don't know anything. They don't know anything they're talking about. They're just reading from a pamphlet. That's all they're doing. But if you go higher up and you make those relationships with the people above them and above those people, it is amazing what doors open up. Like we take Medicare, Medicaid, and we've been able to have Medicaid approve us to do even more than their normal testing, because one, we sent them reports and I did a presentation for them of why they need to pay a little bit more for these people. and they were like, we really appreciate this. This gives us insight because Medicaid really usually is a mental health professional. They're all just people having a job, unfortunately, which culture needs to change on that. But we did a lot of good work on that. So I mean, we're constantly pushing for services for people.
But the population that you serve is one that it's needed. The services are needed. I think that's that's the most important thing here. You know, that's a population one that at times there's not enough services for, or you do run into that aspect of insurance, what's available. You know, yeah, I can see you for therapy, but like, 2 months from now, you know, that's a lot of what I hear. So that, and then also, unfortunately, not everybody wants to work with that population. I've had that too. They're scared.
And something that happens a lot, like you mentioned, Matt, that there's not enough clinicians for the amount of people that are looking.
Right.
And I've been practicing for at the practice I am now, 5 years I've been at the practice. And right now I'm just trying to clear out clients that I know either won't come again or the file is closed to take on people that are on my wait list. And I think we're 5 psychologists at my practice, and I'm the only one taking new clients. The rest of them are booked like 3-4 months in advance.
Yeah, we had to strategize when we hired people to make sure we have like a registered play therapist. We have a Jungian. I do Jungian Freudian work. We have a marriage and family therapist. We have CBT specialists. We have psychodynamic specialists, and just to make sure that we hit the entire gambit. And we have male and female counselors and psychologists just to make sure that we serve the population. And if I had more room, I would hire more because we're about to be completely full because people are realizing that unfortunately COVID's not going anywhere right now.
I will pack my bags. I'll move to Texas. I got family down there. Like, just let me know. Let me know.
Well, we are eventually going to need a social worker, so that's
okay.
It's funny you say that.
Okay, I'm available.
I'll take vacation and help you move.
We have really good barbecue.
You might want to ditch.
I know. What was that?
You might want to ditch that hat.
Oh no, the hat stays. The hat stays. I'm sorry. I know I'll get a lot of hate. That's okay, but the hat stays.
You can keep the hat. It's only if you mess with their Cowboys, and I'm a Pats fan, so I mean, I'm in terrible territory for that. There's a lot more down here than you may realize. It's insane.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Really? I'm a Jet fan, so no matter what, I'm not going to do well down there to begin with.
Nope. As long as you don't have it tattooed on your body, you should be fine.
I don't. I'm good.
Their spring training is up like 20 minutes away from me, where they come up here in Cortland. It's literally right outside of where I am.
Oh, that's a different podcast for
we're
a long time.
I told you.
Another topic on everything. We sidetrack a lot.
Yes, we do. But that's great. That is great. Now, we were talking about that nonprofit, and thank you so much. We could spend all night talking about that and other topics that we were talking about before we started recording. But the books you write, and I want to start, bringing a little bit more focus down into you with the books that you've written and also geek therapy. And I know these books go hand in hand with some of the, geek therapy and, some of the courses that is under the umbrella of geek therapy. Can you tell us a little bit just what inspired you to become an author and, write these books? I have 2 of them, and, Dr. Williams just held them up too. They're great. They're absolutely fantastic. I didn't know, Dr. Williams hyped it up for PAX. He's like, there's Dr. Bean is there. I need you to do me a favor and get these books. And it's like, there's got to be something about these. And I read them, and they're absolutely amazing. If there were audio books,
supposed to be
I'd
there.
listen to them constantly.
I was supposed to be there, if not for Canadian passports.
Yes. Yeah, he would have too.
I mean, the amount of hand sanitizer that was in the Boston Convention Center probably could have done a whole ocean wave and wiped out anything in the area very quickly if someone just let it burst at the seam a little bit,
Yeah, no kidding. It was very well saturated, but they sanitized so like literally. I at one point from being behind the booth for so many hours in a row, like I stayed around for 2 hours after the convention and walked the floor because I had to move, and there was no crowd or anything. So that was my self care for the 4 days was the lights half turned off, hearing the D&D people out in the back playing games still, and just walking with no like very few people around, and just it helped me relax. But just having that person's job with having the sanitation rag on the conveyor belts for like the escalators just standing at the bottom,
spraying it and holding it.
Yeah, it's like I kind of envy that guy at some points, you know, because he's just kind
He
of
was using his noggin.
Yeah, he was all upstairs.
He was working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
But they did it well because I just even like the smaller booths playing like some mini like little indie games, they were right on top of it. They literally were like, nope, hold on, and then you watch them each sanitize the whole keyboard, the mouse, the controller, everything. Like they were good. But this is before we said it before. The PAX was the last convention before chaos happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they nailed it. They did a great job.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm kind of jealous because you got to play a game. I didn't get to play any. But
yeah,
you should have came up to the Take This. They did like this whole what do you call it? Fundraising type thing over there, and we played like they had 6 different games, and I actually bought one of them called Dungeon Mayhem, and we were playing till like 3 a.m. in the morning. It was nuts.
Down on the main floor behind like the curtain over there?
No, it was up on the second floor, but it was ridiculous how awesome that was, and just seeing everyone just kind of enjoying themselves and having fun.
That's fantastic. No, sorry I missed out. I'll catch it next time. But tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become an author and go this direction.
Absolutely. So basically, one of the things is that I have always, all through college, grad school, and stuff like that, I've always been part of one of the administration boards of like popular psychology, of psychology and technology, something along those lines. I've always been like the student rep for those things, and I've always really enjoyed doing that type of stuff. And part of that job is always having to write an article or so every 3 months or so for the community and also for other people. I also really like research, and I love conducting research. I love writing it up. I love pretty much the entire process, except for review or two. Always don't like review or two. That's rule number 1 in research. Usually, when you get a review or two, you're like, I know the comments are gonna be bad. But so basically, what ended up happening is I actually played a lot of video games growing up. I have tons of stories of me being grounded for months, even a year at one point, for playing video games. And Legend of Zelda is my favorite one. Always will be, always has been. And my gosh, so growing up, played a lot of video games, and I went into my first practicum, and it was at a methadone clinic, so I had to be there at 5 in the morning. I would leave at 1 o'clock because those were our hours, and that was perfectly fine. But man, it was intense. Anyways, so the reason I bring up that is because I had a bunch of clients who didn't really kind of know what in methadone clinics the counselors revolve so fast.
Yes,
so
they do.
They don't necessarily. It's really hard to build that trust with their counselor because they're like, you're just going to leave me again. Why do I want to form a relationship with you? And you're like, no, I'm here all year. And they're like, yeah, we'll see. You'll probably be gone in 3 months. And so after the 6-month period, I started bringing in the intention of video games to people who have never played them. And so I started having them play and teaching them a little bit of like mythology and Hermann Hesse's books on different mythological beasts and mythological characters and stories. And what I actually started seeing was a massive transformation for a lot of these methadone clients, where by the end of the year, my caseload had dwindled by about 40%, which is very, very high for not just a regular practitioner, but also
for a methadone clinic.
For a methadone clinic in general.
Holy crap.
And the reason it had actually dwindled that way is because we were teaching all these people who never played video games these different mythological stories that they could relate to and grab onto and feel like they were part of something else. And so what we ended up doing is we kind of standardized that a little bit. And I unfortunately I had to leave to go to learn psych testing at that point. But from what I heard while I was still in California, it did really well for a little bit until it petered off because they didn't have a video game person there, which is unfortunate. But basically that was kind of the turning point that I wanted to kind of get this information out there. I noticed that clients react to this in a lot of positive ways. Yes, there's negative out there too, but there's also a lot of positive. And when they react to it in this type of manner, they can feel competent. They can feel like they are part of something, and they can do something really amazing about themselves in a lot of different ways. And so that kind of led into writing up some of these different reports for some of my internship here in Waxahachie, Texas, and I actually brought it into there, and I had a whole bunch of slew of geek and gamer clients, and we brought in Nintendos, we brought in Xboxes, and we focused on trauma. We worked with a lot of kids on trauma, and it was just quite amazing to see their entire lives take a change when you can use the characters that they choose to play as, kind of show them like, this is kind of what you're doing in here, how can we utilize that in your life as well. And having that go into that type of direction for them was very powerful for their own, what we call personal myth, monomyth is what we call it.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell.
Yep. And with that type of information, we basically kind of just noticed that a lot of these geeks and gamers, like the gaming itself was a secondary condition to something else: trauma, depression, anxiety, ASD, autism spectrum, for those who don't know the term. And what we noticed was that if I can teach, I taught the whole practice how to kind of do this. If you can teach someone to do this, then why can't we hit that on a much grander scale and promote a much more massive change? And so that's what led me down to the writing path. I know it's a long-winded story, but
you're fine.
that's what led me down to start writing these books, because we want to like touch everyone's lives in the way that they can and show like these games, these things that you have done to your own life, and the games you play have purpose, have something that you can take out of them, and you can go forward with that going forward.
I've noticed, because I have been using, before I kind of found you, and even before I found a lot of other psychologists that kind of have had this penchant, I've been studying, for me, it was parasocial relationships and how they impact people. I've been studying this for, 10, 12, oh God, I've lost count. Too many years. But the more I've kind of researched this, the more I've found the ways of using a character, not necessarily on face value, but the story of the character, either the trauma or the interconnections of the character, where someone can really relate to it. And that's where on this podcast, before it kind of got too intensive, I was writing these profiles of characters in terms of, this is the character, who he is, and this is the kind of psychological makeup of the character. And a lot of people really liked those links, and I use those in therapy, of using a character to link to an experience or give a metaphor.
Mm-hmm. And it's all about taking the literal interpretation of what we call the character. This isn't just video games. This is Dungeons and Dragons. This is anime. This is everything possible that you could absolutely make a case for. It's taking that makeup and saying, what has this person learned? What has this person been able to go forward with? And how does it relate to you in that individual sense? What aspects of this person can you actually say, that's part of me, and if this person can do it, so can I?
And it's something that when I was doing my own research for my thesis is kind of researching that Greco-Roman mythology of how people would put these gods up on pedestals, but look at those trials and tribulations and apply it to their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if this specific god can live through the same thing I'm going through, that it means that I can do it as well.
But you can also then take that exact sentence right there and say, from an archetypal level, like if I am feeling Herculean task, right? This task feels so overwhelming. Let's just even use like starting a nonprofit, building up all the resources, building up everything. It feels like you're always rolling that what we call that giant boulder up the hill. Like it never as Sisyphus, it always rolling up the everything that just feels overwhelming. That is what we call a Herculean task, and that task itself can be done, but it just means it's going to take that much more energy to get it taken care of, and that much more to overcome this burden. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have to stop you. It can be a wonderful force for good if you are willing to look at it from like, this is a big task. That's fine. How do we push this up? How do we keep going with this?
And one thing I find with a lot of psychologists I've met in the past that are more traditional, so the quote unquote therapists or psychologists, they tend to shy away from this type of utilization of new media or new technology because it's unproven, untested. And I find that using it's not the sole thing I use, but it helps create that relationship with someone.
Absolutely. I don't think it's necessarily supposed to be the sole thing that we use. Like, I don't know one practitioner who's like, I only use this one thing to help someone. You talk about irrational beliefs, and we talk about them, and we fix them, and then you're done. No, there's progress after that. There's things that have to happen before. There's a pre-setup, there's an end setup, there's then graduation from that task, and then moving forward in that type of capacity. So for someone to be like, oh, this is just a bunch of hullabaloo, this doesn't make sense. Well, why don't you start talking to some of the people who are doing this type of stuff and talking about the content that we're relating to the clients, and watch the clients light up. I have a girl, a client who is a teenager and comes from a rough childhood, still in a rough childhood. She was, to give you guys just a brief idea, she came to me from a psych hospital because she was having psychotic delusions. And one of the things is when I went to the psych hospital to test her, I was like, you're not actually psychotic, you're just massively depressed, like to a degree I have not seen in a kid ever before. And so I actually spent like an extra hour with her. We weren't even testing at this point because I had finished it, but I was talking to her about her life and what was going on. And she's the only one in a family of 5 who watches anime, and everyone else hated anime, and so they would badger her at home. They would be like, why are you doing that? That's useless, don't do that. But she felt related to the characters. So after all of that, we did just kind of like a 1 hour free session for her, and talked about the different ones the different animes that she really enjoyed to listen to and watch and just engross herself in. And it was absolutely phenomenal to see the change in her in that moment. And then she came on as a client because she sought me out afterwards, and we actually then did a complete, much more in-depth intervention with different animes, and her favorite one is Bungo Stray Dogs. And I'm ahead of her in Fairy Tail right now, which is the biggest accomplishment of my life with this client, because the amount of anime that she watches rivals the amount of time that you sleep per night or breathe.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure.
So I'm ahead of her, and it's like, yes, I'm beating you in something. And she's like laughing. She's laughing at me. She goes, just wait till next week, Dr. B. I'm like, no.
No, let me have this.
But it turns out she was just severely depressed. But now, since we've been doing all these types of really interesting interventions of how does she see other people, how can she use these what we call archetypal experiences that she's seen in the anime, and then overlay them upon the people that she is interacting with in school, in life, in job. She has a boyfriend now she is getting straight A's. She feels like she can go and talk to anyone in the class because she, in her mind, perceives that these people act like these types of anime characters. Therefore, this is how my exact response I'm expecting from you. And ironically, 9 times out of 10, that's a response that she gets. And she's like, I feel safe in having these conversations with people. And I actually started an anime group and a D&D group at the school. And I was like, who is this person from a year ago?
Right.
And
she's made tremendous progress.
And this is just on anime interventions. Like, I'm having her watch stuff and I'm having her talk to me about what does she like about this anime? What does she like about this person? What does she not like about this? And that's it. That's literally an intervention for her.
What I think a lot of people don't understand when it comes to geek therapy, for me, I have more of a penchant within superhero therapy, but they're all intertwined, is using these characters, using this new media or this popular culture as a way to springboard into tried and true techniques that we already have. So evidence-based practice. We're just using it in a different way.
The greatest story that I know I've said it once before, but I'll say it again because I love it. When I was working on rehab, I had a guy come into my office, this big burly man, just coming off of detox and screaming at the top of his lungs, get me out. I want to leave. Yelling. He sits down and I'm getting the paperwork ready. It's a voluntary unit. I'm getting the paperwork ready. Sure. Looks at my office and he sees the first appearance of Gambit, X-Men, 266. I have it next to me. And
convenient.
He sees it in my office and all of a sudden just stops. And he's like, that's the first appearance of Gambit. I was like, yes, it is. And then he looks next to it. He goes, that's Preacher #1. I was like, yes, it is. And we spent a good 45 minutes to an hour just talking about comics. He ended up staying. He ended up completing the rehab program, and I hope he's doing well now. But at the bare basic of what everyone here is talking about, it all boils, that's a connection that you're having with someone.
Yes.
You're no longer this big, bad, mean professional. You are on their level that can help them.
Exactly.
I don't mean to dumb it down or to oversimplify it, but that's the bare basic of any therapeutic relationship is a connection. You need to have that in order to move forward. And I love to hear that you started this in a methadone clinic.
It was with my first patient was a 72-year-old.
Really?
I love this.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was fantastic to watch him try to play Legend of Zelda on the Wii.
So everybody thought I brought a Nintendo Switch onto rehab once, and unfortunately, I don't know if this is everywhere, but sometimes when you delve into substance abuse, like, people are very set in their ways. This is how it's treated. This is how it's done.
Yeah,
nothing different.
This is evidence-based. You follow the protocol.
I brought a Nintendo Switch in just to have everybody play Mario Kart for just a little bit, and everybody thought I was nuts. And all of a sudden, it was the best group attendance we've had. We were able to have almost like a team building exercise between everybody. I split everybody into groups. We developed a point system. Like, it was ridiculous what we did. And it was just something different. And I think a lot of times too, and my work has been for a long time in substance abuse. And I think everybody gets used to, okay, I'm going to rehab. Okay, we're going to talk about my feelings. I'm going to sit in a group. I'm going to go to AA. I'm going to go to NA. But you throw in something a little bit different and everybody's like, oh, and I can't curse here. I was like, oh, crap. I can do this. And it brings back a lot of things. And to also hear that you had a 40% drop in patients.
Insane.
That's not heard of.
Insane.
That number.
That people were not coming back in. Not because they were, like,
leaving,
drug-induced or anything. Because they had graduated the program appropriately.
What a lot of people don't understand is therapeutic relationships and being able to build that therapeutic relationship. And this is what geek therapy or superhero therapy or whatever variation of it does so well, is about 80%, so 80% of the success of therapy.
You know what the best
You can
part
have all the books and tools and knowledge, that equates to 20%.
Yeah.
The best part of I think what we're actually talking about here is that when you perform geek therapy, it is not just aimed at geeks. A person on the street can be pulled in, and you can be like, "Hey, tell me about Thor, and how many Thor movies have you seen? What about Iron Man? Do you understand his ego self-identity access across everything of his narcissistic personality, and then how it goes into a depressive state, and then he comes into realization with the grasping of the ego and the self-access, pulling himself apart, and then him forming his actual true nature." And someone's like, "I don't know what you just said, but let's go and talk." That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. You don't necessarily have to be a geek in order to love this stuff, and you don't have to only use it with geeks. Like we've used it with parents. I've used it against parents all the time, and I say that word specifically against them because they don't always necessarily like to think that game playing D&D is appropriate or all these other stuff. Yet they see all this massive progress with their kids when it's directed appropriately.
Because people play video games, people watch Marvel movies, they watch Star Wars or Star Trek or any variation of some form of pop culture. You can find a character somewhere that someone will grasp and link to where they have similar experiences.
It's I'm sorry, it's blowing my mind. I'm sorry because for especially for substance abuse and a methadone clinic, not only is it just the population that, and I hate to say this, nobody wants to work with, except for me.
It's a tough population to work with.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think I'll be in it forever. But just to hear the fact that you were able to go in and do that, and it is a very difficult population. I am sure you had people literally look at you like, WTF, like, are you kidding me? I'm going to sit here and play video games. I'm going to talk about this with you. Because that's what I got when I brought my Switch in. Because the first thing, what are we, kids? I'm like, yeah, let's actually go back to that time a little bit. Yeah, yes, we're kids. Let's go back to that for a moment.
A lot of addiction is rooted in childhood.
Absolutely. And it's blowing my mind that you had a 40% drop, because if I went back and told my colleagues, by the way, I spoke to somebody who had a 40% drop in methadone, they would, one, they'd yell at me, and two, they would tell me I'm lying.
But you could simplify it even more with just having that switch system in the rehab session also was taking their mind off something else and what distracted them.
It's a form of escapism,
right? I was trying. Really, my plan was simple. Here's a different coping skill that maybe some of you have access.
Yeah,
you know. And I do it with music a lot too, in various ways. And I don't want to go too off track, but you're right. You could use it. You could use these types of mediums to have positive results in the end.
I mean, Tony Stark is a wonderful thing because he has he's so versatile in so many different manners of what you can do, of saving the universe, of neurosis, of drinking and his alcohol problem. The
trauma.
Demon in the Bottle. Our
trauma
was a massive one. Trauma's another one. And then just going even higher order of that personality development of who he is and what he's had to do. I mean, it's insane what you can do. That's just one character.
Right.
Then you jump over to Thor, and even just using Marvel Cinematics at this point. Like,
it's
you could just
a
see
plethora.
Yeah.
Well, one that I use a lot is Jessica Jones.
Yes.
Just with sexual assaults and post-traumatic growth. First season of Jessica Jones is kind of the epitome of post-traumatic growth and someone living through sexual assault and trauma.
hands down. And that's
and that ending.
Again, just one character. That's the beautiful part about this. Like we're not even getting into Bruce Banner and the Hulk yet. We're not even getting into I know, in Fortnite. I mean, we're not even getting into anything like really crazy like D&D yet. Like how your character that you choose to play as, your alignment, your choices in that game are representative of who you are. Never mind if you have a really good DM, you can manipulate the situation into a problem-solving idea, and then have the group work together as a team that does not normally work together very well, and then solve that problem in either they can fight, they can not fight, they can have to round about a different way of mixing the two. Maybe they want to have a conversation with the monster. Maybe they want to try to manipulate it into a more positive light. There's so many different avenues that you can go with this, and popular culture is just like the tip of the iceberg.
It was it's funny that you mentioned that. Our first D&D game, the first encounter that I had you guys do, you made it so you guys didn't fight, which was great. It was, I think it was Mrs. Kilmer. Her character was more of a passive and started just making noise around the area to try to scare the monsters instead. And that was a fun time. And thankfully my dice, rolled in your favor, and
you're not hurt about that at all, though.
No,
I like your
not
dice. It benefits us most of the time.
I need more dice. I'm a dice goblin. Anyway,
have you used the D20 I sent?
I used it all last game.
Did you?
I exclusively used that D20 in our last game.
I had it weighed on the 20 side. That way, ones came up all the time for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One thing that a lot of people don't really understand is, and I've seen this a lot, and I've given this example in the past with therapeutic rapport and the connection with that therapist. And a lot of people say or think that, by finally have an appointment with a therapist, this is the only person I'm going to get. They don't realize that you have a choice. If you don't feel that you're connecting with that particular therapist, you can change. Yeah. It's recommended to change. I am not the therapist for everyone. There are some people I really click with, and there are some people that possibly won't click with the style that I have, and that's okay. Like I mentioned, I've given this example in the past where my first client, so this was back in grad school, was a person that had multiple businesses, suit and tie every single day for his entire life. And I was the second therapist he's ever seen. So the first therapist was a more, let's say, granola. Then, so she had the long skirts and sitting on bean bags on the floor. And he had arrived there with a 3-piece suit. He did one session and said, nope, never again. She's a great therapist, just not the right therapist for him.
Little too granola for his taste.
But that's okay.
Absolutely.
She works for a lot of people. It just didn't work for him, and that's okay.
It's my first conversation with clients. That's actually how I end the first session. I tell them if this didn't click, if this didn't work, call me and we'll find somebody different. There's plenty of other people in this office, or there's plenty of other people I can refer you to. I usually end it, don't give up on this, but let's find you the right person. And I always tell them, like, listen, if you're worried about hurting my feelings, trust me, I've heard worse.
I'm pretty sure therapists have been called every name in the book at some points.
Yep. Having worked in a prison, I've been called everything.
Having worked on a rehab. Having worked on a rehab, a psych unit. Yeah, I've heard I've heard every name. So
yeah, it's pretty intense what we sometimes.
The work that you do is that's awesome. the work that you have done and continue to do. That's amazing.
It's super rewarding, and being able to see the change happen, and what our parents, as like, oh, I just want to do like what our parents think we do. We just talk about comics or something like that. What we actually do, we're doing therapy. What our client thinks we're doing is we're having fun. That's like, therapy is supposed to be enjoyable. It's not supposed to be like teeth pulling or trip to the dentist or to the doctor. You're actually supposed to enjoy it. Like, you're supposed to gain insight. You're supposed to gain all sorts of stuff around yourself. And if you can manage those things, and you can learn from these different things, why not use the mythologies that we have very much around us and just at our fingertips?
How do you not deal with, that's the wrong word. How do you work with,
having worked in a prison, I've been called everything.
A parent worked on a rehab, kind of not on board. Having worked on a rehab, a psych anything unit, that you're doing, because I think unfortunately a lot of parents have, video games are bad. That's the reason my child is doing this. Why are you playing video games with him? Like, how him or her?
Actually,
how do
we're
you
doing therapy?
How do you
what our client
word that? How do you discuss that?
It is one of my favorite things to do. So, okay.
What our parents think we do.
What talk about comics. The reason is because it's so. What our client thinks we're
mind
doing
blowing for the parents.
We're having fun.
That's
So
like
one of the things
therapy
that
is supposed to be
we tend to do.
It's not supposed to be.
We have the parent teeth pulling, parents like playing video games, playing video games. They're not doing actually supposed. We're not doing that. Not blah 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 blah. You know, we all have heard those types of sorts of stuff around yourself. And if the biggest thing, the kid's just sitting there going like, again, you know, you just see the wheels turning, and you're like, all right, you know, thanks mom, thanks dad for that information. You turn to the kid, and whatever that type of geek artifact that they're really into, you start talking to them about it, and you see them like get really confused, or like, why are we talking about this? And you start going into it deeper and deeper. What our parents think we do, we just talk about into why they play this type of character, and you see them get excited. What our parents think we do, we just talk about comics, start to come out of their shell and not just be like glazed over look. You look over to the other side, and what our parents are like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like, what our parents think we do, we just talk about comics. What you're asking, what we actually do, we're doing therapy. What our clients think is one of the biggest things that we're actually not giving to them either. Like, therapy is supposed to be enjoyable. They get this scowl on their face, like, well, I communicate, and like, our trip to the dentist, to the doctor, ask them her about what they're doing, and they're like, well, I don't care about that, and I'm like, that's the issue. That right there is the issue. That statement right there is an invalidation of your child's experience, of your
as
child's
a parent,
growth
you
potential.
should care for everything your child does, even though you don't care about it. It's an interest for them.
And so when they have that mind blown, I usually then take it a step further. So I have a game called Beasts of Balance in my office, and it's an iPad game, and it's like an origami stacking game. And I actually have them then play in the clinical intake. We haven't even like done anything really. Play together just to kind of see how do they interact. And the kid gets super into it. The parents are like, blah blah, you know, I don't really want to do this. And then you have them switch roles where the kid has to then tell the parent, which one do you do next? Which one do you have to do? How do you balance this stuff? And then you start to see them work as a team. And they leave that clinical interview being like, this is weird, and I feel connected to you, and I don't know why. And you're like, this is the power of what we're doing. Is because if you can talk about this, if you can interact, if you can ask that question, if you want to learn about this type of stuff, then you have to go and be curious. You have to engage in that capacity. And so that's really one of the big hallmark signs of what we do in the clinical intakes is we engage them heavily in this capacity to really focus in on why this is powerful, why you should be wanting to do it. Then we just send them home with interventions of like, kid, you got to teach them how to play Fortnite. Doesn't matter how bad they are. Or Brawl Stars is one of my favorites, because then parents like start playing it, and then like they'll friend request me on my account and stuff like that too. It's super hilarious to be like 11 o'clock at night, you just finish up a game, parent like friends you, and you're like, sorry man, we're not doing this right now, go play with your kid. They're awake right now.
Because it's something that I've mentioned a lot to the parents that I see, because I mainly work with adults, but I deal a lot with certain parents, and they say, well, I'm not connected with my kid, they're playing these games and I don't understand. And I say, go play. pick up a controller or a keyboard and mouse, or even just sit with them and watch them play and ask them questions about what their interests are. Because if, as a parent, you are not interested in what the child is interested in, it just creates that barrier.
Mm-hmm.
If you're forcing the child to do something you want to do, it'll create that barrier, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think too. I think there's always been that sort of like disconnect, almost like there's supposed to be that disconnect. Like, yeah, I'm not supposed to know what video game this is. I'm not supposed to know what a Fortnite dance is. I'm not supposed to know, what a victory royale is. I'm not supposed to know like why this village is so beautiful in Animal Crossing. But there is sort of this but I've actually told parents too, like, no, you should be invested. Like, you should, doesn't matter if you don't understand, at least ask.
Matt has had like 4 different islands now in Animal Crossing, right?
I'm only on 2. Only on 2 so far. I've been busy.
But one thing, like I said, like I mentioned, as much as I would want my sons to play hockey, because I'm from Canada, so of course we play hockey. If they want to go to, say, dance or piano, I'm going to be a dance dad. There's no point in me trying to force them to do something they don't want to do. You need to support what their interests are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the wonderful things about like when we write about or we talk about video games in a lot of these different contexts, a lot of people aren't making these types of connections. Like, say, let's use Legend of Zelda because it's the easiest and it's my favorite. Silent protagonist, right? He's silent for a reason. The reason is to project upon the character on a lot of levels. And if you can project upon the character, then you are that character. And when you turn that game off, you hit that power button, that projection has to come back into you. So that's just one of the big things if we start thinking about games and video games as a visual mythological story that we can relate to. It's the same thing as reading any of the old mythological tales. Then we have now just even that tiny switch is already starting to move us in that type of direction of why the storytelling is important, why trauma can be informed through a video game, why we can be courageous to force ourselves into a more positive role model or positive experience, and why we need to be aware that the different characters that we play as are just that important to us.
Absolutely.
Because without going too deep into parasocial relationships and everything, but those characters, and not just the stories that they'll be in, but kind of the underpinnings of the character can teach us so much. They can teach us these life lessons or explain certain life situations about how to behave or act in certain ways. Teach us lessons that we may not necessarily understand or we may not have in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
One thing that I mentioned to my thesis supervisor, God bless him for taking a chance on this idea, but the whole basic principle of my research at the time was, what would Spider-Man do given this situation? Because Spider-Man has 2 people. You have Spider-Man and then you have Peter Parker. And how do you play this scenario in this situation? Because it's a fictional character, because it's this comic book character. A lot of people say, oh, well, you're not going to learn anything from that person. But then you have the flip side of, what would Jesus do? So why is it okay to use what would Jesus do and not what would Spider-Man do? What would Captain America do?
Makes it a little bit more relatable.
It's amazing how that works.
You can learn so much from these characters.
Yeah, it's truly amazing I would say, aspect of how we can see ourselves in a lot of different mediums. And you know what my opinion, one of the most wonderful things is that someone could be playing this in California and someone could be playing this in New York at the same exact time and have that same exact experience. And you're like, why are they getting that? How are they doing this? At video games or stuff is meaningless. Why are they having this amazing experience at the same time, this relatable connection, when this stuff's not supposed to matter according to people? It's because it does. It has that meaning. It has that matter, and it just needs the content and a little bit of switching here and there to really understand why we do this. I mean, how many of us here have seen all of JoJo? Yep. See?
Almost.
Yeah. So the first season, the first 3 episodes, like when you first watch those first 3 episodes, we're like, what the heck is going on? What? This is redonkulous. Whatever is happening, and then it just gets weirder and weirder in the best soulful way. It can be used to teach so many different things, such as to how to get away from toxic masculinity, how to be able to overcome different traumas, how to continue to push forward even when the odds are stacked against you. And these different alters, these different ideas of who we are, parts of our personality, can be utilized in a lot of different ways. Not necessarily saying, obviously, fist fighting and stuff like that, but to counteract the different aspects of the people around us, how we integrate and psychically integrate with them.
It just takes that little extra step into video games or into just pop culture in general, being able to take that little extra step to be able to get to that point. I think on the surface, a lot of people, look at it as this mind numbing tool, when in reality, if you work with it a little bit, it can be a teaching tool.
It becomes a catalyst, is what we would say. A catalyst.
Better word, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that catalyst is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because video games has a different place within entertainment, because a lot of entertainment is very passive. So you'll watch TV or you'll watch a movie, but with a game, it's very active. You're making these choices. You're making these decisions. And a lot can be learned from those decisions. So why did you go right rather than left? Or why did you get this item versus this one? Or make this decision versus this one? And it kind of teaches you a lot about the person, but also about yourself.
I've used StarCraft to teach about financial structure and financial freedom more than I think I have ever wanted to, because it's a resource-based game.
So StarCraft or Civilization or
Command and Conquer.
Zerg was such a cheap race. They
always hated the Zerg rush.
Oh
man, it was brutal.
Have you guys ever played against a pro in that game? It is disastrous for you.
I've played against my father, who is a closet pro at old school Warcraft and StarCraft, where for fun he would play 10 of the hardest difficulty computers against himself, and he would win. Like, he would take on... We used to have old school LAN parties with me, my brother, my dad, and my best friend, all in the same house in different corners. We had a hell of a network. And it would be the 3 of us versus him. And I would use cheat codes, back when you could, to get the resources and stuff, so I could even have a chance to compete against him, and he would still win. But, yeah, I admit, I used cheat codes. Who didn't? No.
The risk level.
Power was overwhelming.
It was, but man, I love the reference for the StarCraft and the finances on it, because you're absolutely right. Yeah, I would have never have thought of that. I really wouldn't have, and that's just fantastic.
It's even better when you have your map editor and you can create the entire level yourself, and it specifically strategize it so they're forced into that type of mindset thinking.
But one thing I wanted to touch on, Dr. Bean, was what you and others have developed with Layleen.
Oh, Leyline? Yeah.
Yeah, Leyline.
Leyline, it'll work. It's Canadian. I'm appreciative of it. Yeah. So what we've done is we've actually started training clinicians and other professionals. We have people across the seas in the UK actually doing our training program. We have life coaches, we have doctors, like psychologists, and them, yes, but we also have like medical doctors taking our courses and everything along those lines to help inform them of like how can they utilize this stuff for their interventions and just to help reduce client fatigue and work with their clients. And so we're traversing across all sorts of domains: video games, anime, D&D, fan fiction, geek culture, overall popular culture, superheroes, comics. I mean, it's literally the sky's limitless. And we're doing about like two or three trainings a month. And let's see, by the end of this year, we'll have close to about 35 different trainings overall that will have been offered, and people can take them for continuing education units. Where I think we're about to get NBCC accreditation for the master's level as well. We're working on social work, but man, social work's rules are redonkulous.
Yeah.
And their paperwork is intense. And so
Yeah.
I've taken 2 days off of work twice now to try to get through it. And my goodness, it is the most frustrating paperwork to try to go through. But yeah, we're basically like, we opened up a publishing company. We have our Geek Therapy book coming out. We have our Final Fantasy one coming out to do that, which has a massive, amazing trauma chapter in the end of it, which is going to be insane. So, I mean, we're really just trying to make this as accessible as possible for people. And we understand, like, the people who are leading some of the charge, that we're not the experts in every aspect of geek culture. So we're pulling in people who are also experts in different areas that we may not be as familiar with, and they're coming on in. Like, we just had a LARP one. I've done LARP, live action role playing, but I can't tell you any of the research around that. I can't tell you anything of how to do that. We have someone who has worked nationwide with LARPers and internationally with working with trauma and LARPers, and she did a fantastic presentation, absolutely phenomenal way of explaining the content in a way that you're like, this is amazing. Like how you guys have already formed this type of trauma-informed or anxiety-informed, utilizing an X card, utilizing the thumbs up sign. And these are all just nonverbals where you don't have to have anything else past that. This is all absolutely amazing work that a lot of people are already hearing. That's the whole point of it. Like, we're trying to create that platform. We're not trying. We are heavily succeeding in creating that platform to be able to inform the rest of the world about this type of stuff and how we can use it to our benefit. It's a long
You just rendered everyone speechless just because of everybody's just so in. Oh my gosh.
There are so many good courses on the line. I'm taking one right now. It's yours, the Video Gamers and Games and Therapy. And like I mentioned, I don't have a lot of time with the newborn and the toddler, but it is so good, and it's kind of really hitting to home with a lot of the things that I work with and that I've already been using. But it's always refreshing and confidence inspiring to know that someone else is doing the same thing or in a variation of the things that I'm doing. So almost like I'm not crazy for doing these things.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things we're trying to do is I think what you just brought up is actually an amazing point. And I'm going to attempt to blow your mind on this one. Whereas we help our geeks, right? We help the people with geeks. We help people who are not geeks. We help people using this type of geek cultural artifacts, is what we call them. But what about us? Why are we drawn to this stuff? Because we are geeks on some level, and we also utilize these things. So for us, for clinicians, this is a normalizing a condition for clinicians and professionals who feel connected to this but don't know necessarily why. And so it creates not just something for our clients, but also for the clinicians to know you are not alone. Which, if anyone's gone into private practice, you know how lonely it can be really quick. if you
is.
don't have a lot of people around you.
Yeah. Very true.
It very is. Even within, like I said, I have a decent sized office, so we are 1, 2, 3, 6 on my floor, and then there's a couple more on the second floor. But on my day to day, I'm seeing 6 to 8 clients in a day. I'm in my office and I just go in and out just to get the client and go back in. There's no real connection there.
Mm.
So what you are talking about is we at the Dealers Project, we take sure that is not necessarily happening, where we have staggered lunches, we have staggered breaks. If someone's like, hey, I need this like an extra 15 minutes here, we're like, great, let's move this client, let's just push everything back a little bit. We take great care to make sure that we our clinicians don't feel like they're alone, and usually obviously do lunches and everything else. Everyone's lunch break tends to be around the same area, so clinical and admin staff kind of talk together. The group's always laughing because we're just doing something crazy. Very entertaining if you walk in and you're like, they like their jobs, they like what they're doing. I'm like, great, this is what we're trying to do for everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm happy to hear that, and I can't wait to see what else you have planned for the future.
So I can tell you, I can't tell you their names, but I can tell you that there are already 6 other books on the way. Like one's on RPG manuals. We put out a call for one of the other ones of a book on 2020 musings. There's that one. We have a D&D manual that will be coming out to utilize in therapy. That is going to be that'll probably come out late 2021, I think. Man, what else do we have? We have a teacher who's actually writing a book of how he uses games in his classroom to teach ESL, and I thought it was such a cool idea that I was like, you've got to write a book on this, man. And so he's almost done with his portions, and then I take over. But we have so many different things down the pipeline, and everything just has to go in a perfect order. Otherwise, it all gets messed up here and there. But it's well worth it.
That's awesome.
I await with anticipation.
The D&D one excites me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there's gonna be 2 of those ones. So one, Sarah Bowman, if you're familiar with her stuff, she's writing us a book on a little bit more colloquial language. And for people who don't know what that is, it's just a little bit more language that anyone can pick up, and it's not just research jargon heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to kind of put it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's writing one about how can we utilize these things for benefits and to understand our clients and work with them on cognitive, affective, and social emotional stuff. And she's almost done interviewing about 50 different clinicians who use D&D or a different type of TTRPG in therapeutic context to really hit home these ideas, these focused opportunities.
Yeah. So many things that you can do with this medium. It really is incredible.
It's
what a lot
limitless.
of people don't understand is if you have something, there's a character somewhere in a specific fandom that is dealing with something similar to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've lost many of animes to my clients because I let them borrow it and then they just never return it. And I'm like, all right, well, you probably were never going to find it otherwise. I'll just buy another copy.
That's yours now.
Yeah,
but okay, for good reasons. For good reasons.
It is for a good reason, and that's okay because I'm gonna let you have it because you probably needed it more than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we could sit here and talk shop all night long.
That is a
I can
definite.
get a coffee going. Let's do this.
3-hour podcast. Anybody?
Done it before.
We have.
No, you know what? I've been sitting here just really absorbing this conversation and discussion because it's just on just another level. It's so interesting, and what you've done with the medium of just gaming to bring a positive spin on it and utilize it in these different forms and platforms is just amazing. Where I'm very used to hearing people talk about the negative side of gaming, and it was a big thing last year in the news with the World Health Organization, gaming addiction and this and that, and people tend to jump on the bandwagon when it gets into things get into mainstream media, and they focused on the negative of gaming. But if you take a minute, just like meditating, if you just take a minute, breathe, and focus, you will see how much good gaming does for not just the individual, but on the big picture as well. Example, this is big picture. St. Jude's Children's Hospital, GCX, the Gaming Community Expo convention raised $6 million this year. That is huge, and that's gaming doing good, and that's on the big picture. When you go down to the individual, the self-care, positive that you could have of it, and everything that you explained and touched on is just utilizing it in ways that I'm sure any game developer would just be glowing with energy just from how you were able to take what they've created for people to enjoy for entertainment and to utilize in rehab settings and self-care and several different ways after that, and it could be endless. So yeah, we could sit here all night and talk about this, but I just wanted to thank you for this really amazing discussion. I mean, this was awesome. I think I just loved Matt going crazy, going, what was your percentage again?
It's unheard of.
It is.
I believe you. And by the way, I believe you. I believe you, but it's just
it is unheard of because methadone clinics are known for in and out, just
yes,
methadone and stuff like that. But when you can address that underlying trauma, that underlying loss of everything, and help them gain stuff through these types of mediums, changes the entire world for them in ways that you never understood that you could. And that's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, humans thrive on connection.
Yeah.
They need that connection to something. And if it's not someone directly in front of them, they need a digital version of.
I think also too, the big thing for me was to hear that somebody was doing something positive within a methadone clinic. Because I think unfortunately there's a huge stigma around it. There is even where I work, the people that work there will give it a stigma. It's not good half the time. So to hear that somebody was doing something very positive and amazing at a methadone clinic just makes me happy. It really does.
And it made the people happy too. That's why they come back.
Great. So awesome.
But I think that just brings up the ideas people don't even realize what much they can relate to the game. Our book that's come out, Final Fantasy. How many people, if you think about the game overall, all right, you're a group of people, you destroy the evil villain. It's a big long storyline, right? Mm-hmm. But if you take a moment to think about all of the different games, they're all traumatized. Every last of one of the warriors has been traumatized on some level. They have to overcome their trauma. And that is one of the reasons that we ended that book with that chapter and talking about big T trauma, little T trauma, and post-traumatic growth. Because you have to understand that these things are interconnected. And if you are able to show how they're interconnected in this very powerful manner, then it just takes on a whole different life of itself.
So true.
It is very true. to go into the gaming top, since having my son, I haven't been able to play a lot of games on my PC, so I've been kind of dusting off my PS4, and I'm finally getting around to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm at like 34 hours in, and about 3/4 of the game through, and it takes me back to 1996.
Yeah, you were talking about it last
with better
night.
graphics.
And the game is I don't know if anyone has played the remake of Final Fantasy VII, and they've just done such a masterful job, and I can't wait for the other parts of taking what was already there and making it even bigger, making it even more special, and that you feel for these characters. Certainly after the Sector 7 plate drops and you see the aftermath, and not just with the NPCs, but within your own characters, with Barrett and with Tifa, just living this trauma, this loss, and this guilt as well of them trying to do good, and what they've been trying to do has killed thousands.
Shinra, man.
Yeah.
Shinra.
Shinra. Always Shinra.
But again, it's taking me back to the late 90s of playing Final Fantasy VII, and it's so good.
So I haven't played it yet. Did they leave Heidegger in there yet?
Yeah, he's there.
Good. We have a whole chapter on it.
Because the first game, so if you remember Final Fantasy VII back in the old game, you had the 3 discs. So the first game right now is pretty much Midgar, just expanded. What you would do in like 6 hours ish. You in Final Fantasy, the original one, 6 to maybe 15 hours. You would play Midgar, and then you would leave and go do other stuff. I'm 34 hours, and I'm not even close. I'm at chapter 14 out of 18. Oof. So it's going to be a 50+ hour game, and it's going to layer on top of each other.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing what we can learn from this stuff and keep on going. And then like the nostalgia, the memories that you're even talking about of thrusting you back to a childhood state, then you can also work with that from a psychoanalytic point of view as well, very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so I've been playing Final Fantasy VII. What else? What has everyone else been playing?
Fall Guys.
I've been
fun.
hearing good things.
It's fun.
A game that just kind of hit the scenes and had just instantaneous, overwhelming success. Like that, I don't think they've been able to keep the servers up for 24 hours since it launched.
Well, it was free this month on PlayStation Plus.
Is this us jumping into gaming news? Is this how we?
Let's use it. That's a segue. We're going to segue into it.
Segue.
We're professionals.
We're going to zip right into this one. Oh boy.
The rise of Fall Guys.
Rise of Fall Guys. Yeah, and I never do these things in the right order, Joe.
That's why I put just TBA on it. You know, let you figure it out. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
What was it? Last podcast after we all hopped off, everyone was talking about Fall Guys. And, what the heck? $20, put it on. Went and got it on Steam, and we just played. And it was just dumb fun. Like there's pay to win. There's no there's microtransactions in it that are reasonable. They're cosmetic. You can make your guy look silly, but the game itself, it's just it's up to 60 beans, jelly beans running for their lives to try to hit the finish line before everyone else.
And I kind of tying it back into the conversation we were having before. Like Fall Guys is a pretty great game to play with. I know you can't do, there's no couch co-op yet, But like sit on the couch and just passing the controller back and forth. Like if you're a teenager, being able to hand the controller like over to your mom or dad, it is that kind of game. It's an easy game to pick up. There's 2 buttons. Like it is that silly fun, but it is good for like that. See, not all video games are about shooting the other person. This is just about getting through an obstacle course.
And it's super fun to watch.
They already had people shut that down in a hurry. Like I was shocked. Of like again, a company having trouble keeping servers online. They got a sniff at people cheating and flying through the levels and went, nope, that's gone.
Because there's no reason. What are you cheating at this game for? Like I'm gonna get really just like, what are we doing?
Let's not get triggered. All right.
When we were the other night, there was someone standing at the finish line and literally grabbing people to keep them from crossing the finish line. Like, what? Okay, dude.
I can kind of forgive that because it's at least a game mechanic.
Right.
But the fact that people are putting like, being able to just zoom right through the level and bypass everything, like, come on. What are you getting out of this? I don't want to get mean, but like, what are we doing here? It's a fun game.
Respect to proper trolling.
Right.
Respect to proper trolling. Troll the way the game intended.
Right.
Right.
I love it when the guy is at the end, like, doing the little dance emote, like, yeah, I made it. One of 38. And some guy runs by and they get kicked out, because they were too busy dancing. Yeah, no, it's a fun game. And it's very colorful, too. And it doesn't take... I love the games that don't overcomplicate things. The 4 of us collectively play Destiny. And it's one of those... MMORPG large games where you have inventory. Yeah, inventory, this roll, that roll, and it gets really in depth. Where
you button on your controller and then combinations thereof.
Yeah, and then you got games like Fall Guys and like Senua's Sacrifice with Hellblade, where you don't change your outfit, you don't change your weapon. You don't even you can't even pull your weapon out until the mechanic pulls it out for you when you need it. And Fall Guys, where you could dance, change your little, dress your guy up a little bit, and go from A to B, or go and try and steal somebody's eggs out of their basket. But it doesn't overcomplicate it, and it's a fun game just to just kind of unplug and just have fun. And it's so much fun with other people too.
Because games are supposed to be fun.
Unless it's Dark Souls. And that's
that's just punishment.
Yeah, that's
punishment. You're just beating your head against a wall.
Yeah.
That's a different type of fun. That's if you want to buy 3 more $60 controllers because you threw them against the wall fun.
I had a client who once beat Dark Souls really, really fast. Don't ask me how he did it. I still don't know. And he went and bought the ring, which made the bosses and everything hit you like 33% harder. And he then he challenged himself to go forward into that one. It took him a lot longer to beat the game, but he did do it.
You see, but I like that. Right, that's a personal quest almost. I like that.
It's you versus the game.
Yeah.
Right, it's like
learning mechanics and recognizing patterns.
Yeah, he was amazing kid. So he would calculate his grade, what he'd have to do in each of his courses just to get an A, and then he just wouldn't do any more work past that.
On a professional level, I would,
impressive.
on a professional level, I'd have a conversation with him, like, just because we have to. But on a personal level, like, good for you.
Yeah.
Like, you go, kid.
Yeah. Talking about you against that game, I was talking to Joe last night within Final Fantasy VII. Going back to the old mini games, I was doing the pull-up competition. And it was just kicking my butt. And I was doing it for like an hour, just trying to get that damn button combination.
At least an hour. And I was shocked he was still doing it. That's dedication.
And
perseverance.
And I finally got it maybe like 15 minutes after we we finished talking because I was able to calm the baby, and it was just that most satisfying moment of, it is done. I never need to do this ever again.
That's how those 7 trials wins.
Oh God, I don't know if I'm ever going to get those trials wins.
I don't even try.
So
I've come close, just never the 7.
The other thing on our list is apparently the app stores are having some issues with Fortnite and Epic.
Epic is having the problem with the app stores.
Well, they got rid of it.
Like Epic, the Epic, what was it? The Epic launcher or just Fortnite in general off their platform?
So the App Store and Google Play got rid of Fortnite in their stores, and I believe Epic is now suing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So delving more into this story, because a lot more has been kind of coming up. So the way it came about is the App Store. So the Apple App Store takes a 30% cut of all in-app purchases. So it's kind of running servers and making money, and So Epic didn't like that. So they implemented a way to circumvent the App Store 30% and discount the V-Bucks. So 1,000 V-Bucks would cost you $9.99 through the app stores, or cost you $7.99 if you go through this new route that they implemented that is not under TOS.
Right. So earn an extra buck and screw over Apple in the process.
Yeah. So what would happen is Apple kind of got wind of that, and it wasn't vetted. It was nothing. So they pulled the app. As soon as they pulled the app, Epic launched a video and a lawsuit. So this, to put this out so quick, it was orchestrated. They were baiting them into a lawsuit.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want about the Apple ecosystem, and Google's not much better themselves, but I think we had this conversation last week with the xCloud thing not coming to Apple. Similar circumstances with the monetization of the system, and they're just real restrictive. So Epic's they've got the money in the clout to kind of take that head on.
Because Microsoft and Sony take a cut of all of the V-Bucks that are purchased through the stores, but they're not as big as Apple or Google.
Right.
So they're kind of taking that aspect because it's games versus the entire ecosystem for all developers.
Yeah,
and they released the 1984 ad.
It's a big win for the gaming industry on the mobile platform.
So I'm kind of on the fence of, well, they kind of went against TOS, but I understand not wanting to give the 30% cut, but it's delicate.
Yeah. I don't know.
30% is pretty
it's a lot,
all things considered. Yeah,
it is a lot.
I'd be curious to know how much they're actually getting from mobile, though. Like, I get it. I know it's a big market.
Well, just off of Apple, they've pulled it off 1 billion. So billion with a B devices.
Okay.
That's just on iOS. It's 1 billion users taken away.
But do you think they actually lost a user, or was that a secondary device for the good majority?
I'm guessing it's secondary or tertiary.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, they didn't really lose. Oh, okay, you can't play it on the subway, unless you bring your Switch now.
Yeah.
Right.
There's so many other ways of accessing Fortnite that I mean, again, they're in the perfect position to make this fight and not really they're not losing. Even if if Apple says you're perma-banned off the platform, they're not losing. They're not going anywhere. The only game that can kill Fortnite is Fortnite. I remember saying that about Destiny, and it's true.
Well, Fortnite's still in beta.
Yep.
Oh, they just got rid of it.
They did?
I think they did. I think they just got rid of that beta tag. They're officially launched.
Well, and see, maybe that might have some more to do with the situation, because I know, again, the xCloud thing, they were allowed to be on iPhone because they were considered a beta, and you had to go through their side platform. And beta has a little less restrictions, which is and Fortnite was exploiting that with the consoles, because you can push updates faster because they don't have to be certified because you're a beta. Same thing with the PC platforms, and then you get away with some stuff in the marketplace because you're a beta. So maybe that ties into it somewhere.
There's always where there's a will, there's a way, and they found that one little crack to get through. But hey, you know what? Good for them for that.
Because just for fun, I looked it up, because the whole thing behind Epic's lawsuit is they're going against that 30% cut that Apple is taking, and a lot of the other app stores are taking, because it's hurting their bottom line. For a company that has made $4.2 billion in profit last year.
It's like a couple bucks.
Epic? Apple.
Epic.
Okay.
They made $4.2 billion in profits.
And that's mostly off Fortnite, I'm presuming.
I'm guessing it's about 90% off of Fortnite.
Has to be.
Because Fortnite skins are egregiously overpriced, like $20 for a skin.
You know whose skins aren't that expensive? Fall Guys.
I knew he was about to say that.
At least it wasn't Animal Crossing.
Nah, I did my Animal Crossing reference for the podcast.
I know. Didn't say it.
But you couldn't get mad because I used it clinically.
You're right. It's every episode
it
since
passes.
PAX East.
It passes.
You're right. It's got just a little nudge.
It's never gonna go away.
Never.
No, it won't. It just keep it going.
We'll sign off the podcast and it'll be like Animal Crossing, and just to get it in, like if.
Till the day you tell me, like, Matt, you're no longer part of the podcast.
You'll keep making Animal Crossing references.
We will
He's
keep
just going to show up in the
Crossing.
chat room and say Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it's going to show into the stream.
It's true.
Yeah, I could see that. Or then you'll just see him just drop off the call like, oh, we lost Matt. I don't know what happened. No, but Apple's not making any friends right now, especially with they just announced too that they're going to be kind of charging for their platform now, aren't they? For like the iTunes platform?
Not that I heard
There
of.
was something.
Really?
There was something in the news about that. I got to look it up now.
Because there's one thing that differentiated Mac OS versus Windows is Mac OS was free. And it's been free for years.
Right. Windows just adopted that same mentality.
Yeah.
You buy it and then you have it.
Yeah, because one thing a lot of people, when you were building PCs, is, oh, I can build this kick-ass gaming PC for $2,000. Yeah, but did you factor in Windows?
Mm-hmm.
Where
how expensive it is.
Because Windows was like, what? At one point, it was like $300 for a key.
The base off $129, and then you could get the full Pro edition for somewhere in the 300s.
It was quite expensive.
Yep. No, I heard this on some other piece of media. It was Apple used to be the company that come to iTunes and you can get that song for cheap and we won't put any restrictions on it. And right, they were the guys that were fighting the music industry and fighting for the musicians by giving them a platform to distribute. And so they say if you live long enough, you become the thing that you hate.
Yeah, you see yourself become the villain.
Yeah.
Well, right now they're not making any new friends with Intel as well, because they announced that by 2022, I think.
Or no more Intel. Everything.
No more Intel on any Apple device, which is huge.
That would just be printed on the bottom of the monitor holder or whatnot. That's $900.
Yeah, because they're making their own chips, but now Intel's losing market share quickly because my PC's running AMD.
Oh.
Right.
What else we got in the news? We'll sit here and talk about Apple half the night. I know that.
Yeah.
I think that is all we have at the moment, unless someone else has anything off the top of their heads.
The only thing I can think of is NVIDIA is getting ready to launch their 3000 series cards.
That's what I'm saving up, waiting for to build up my new rig.
And I know that Intel released their 10th generation that is kind of meh.
Right. Yeah.
Compared to what AMD's releasing with the Ryzen chips.
I didn't catch that. I'm sorry.
It's hard to compete with AMD and the Ryzen chips right now for Intel. Because you can get a quad core versus an 8 core for cheaper. You can get the 8 core for cheaper than the quad core.
Sure.
Sure.
But AMD's
Sure.
still kind of lacking on the GPU side. But I'm anticipating what NVIDIA is going to launch.
Well, NVIDIA's, they've always had kind of an interest in the ARM processing game in general, back with the Tegra chips. So there's also rumors that they're moving to become a first-party chip provider, in the likes of Intel instead of being second-party. So they're going to make. Right, they're going to make some moves. They're going to get a little more market share. That's going to be more revenue, and then they might be able to actually compete with Ryzen on a financial level. Because that's always been the thing with you had Intel and NVIDIA outperformed, right? You got AMD and AMD ATI, your Ryzen that would do 85 to 90% as well for half the price, right?
And now AMD CPUs have overtaken Intel CPUs, but their GPUs are lacking like crazy.
Yeah.
So kind of the sweet spot is a Ryzen CPU and an NVIDIA card, because I have a 2070 Super in mine, and it's pretty good. It's nowhere near the 2080 Ti, but I don't know where they're going to go with the 3000 series chips.
Only time will tell.
I'm guessing better ray tracing?
More flops.
Yeah, more flops.
That's really, that's all you can do is memory and more teraflops. Just
because there's reaching a point of diminishing return, even with the new consoles coming out, of how much better can you really make a game look?
Oh.
And then at what point does... We're already going to have this. We're already having this issue with 4K textures. Look how big the games are getting. They're
God,
because of the assets. So
Modern Warfare pushed like 120 gigabyte update not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. And that's mostly just assets. So
yeah, Battlefield 4 in its heyday, it was like 200 gigs, 250 gigs. It's massive.
Yeah. So yeah, once you start adding in all the extra effects, and especially in PC gaming, when you start adding all the compatibilities between, all the different hardware, it's just going to be absurd. You're going to be buying a terabyte drive for 2 games.
Thank God prices of SSDs are coming down.
Mm-hmm.
For now.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
Yeah. The only other gaming news I can think of was last week was the first beta for Avengers. So the
I heard it was
pre-order
pretty
beta.
good.
Yeah, a lot of people saying really good quirks and kind of things to be smoothed out. But all in all, I've been hearing relatively good things.
I'm excited. I can say that much.
Yeah, there were no
Sony
real complaints about the gameplay. I guess all the complaints about it were like texture pop-ins or
optimization.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In time, you drop down to like 5 frames in one particular scene.
Yeah, the snow level apparently you just drop frames like crazy. But Sony had to be Sony and make Spider-Man exclusive to the PS4.
Another evil giant.
Well,
I'm still waiting for the prices to drop on consoles. It's going to be fun.
it's
Waiting for that.
That's not happening. With
No.
moving around, man. No way.
Because it was all set on getting Avengers on PC, and now I have this dilemma of, well, I want to play with Spider-Man on the Avengers game.
I know. It's ridiculous.
And we don't know if it's a time exclusive or if it's a full exclusive. Ugh.
And Sony has those rights. They're probably just gonna keep that.
think so.
Oh.
Well, they're banking on the new Miles Morales game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Heavily.
Who wouldn't bank on that? I mean, gosh, that thing got a huge reaction just being shown. But
I was very excited.
I'm going to hold you guys right there because we could go on all night talking about gaming chat, but I'm going to have to edit this. So how about we start wrapping things up a little bit?
It
Sure.
is 2 degrees in my bedroom. Not my bedroom, my office here.
2?
92.
Oh,
You are melting, my friend.
yeah.
You need to get one of those cubes that me and Joe have.
That's right. Even though mine's off right now.
Yeah, mine's actually running in the background. I don't know if you can hear it.
Usually not an issue. Like I said, it died today, and halfway through the cast here, I'm like chatting with the wife, going, "Put in a service call. Put in a freaking service call." So, service call has been made. Oh, thank God that the thing's under home warranty.
Oh, there you
good.
go. Yeah, lucked out.
I mean, how many days is it going to take to get someone out here, though? That's the big issue.
Especially during like heat waves like that when it's warm out, everybody's calling. But Dr. Bean, thank you again so much for coming on with us and chatting. I'm gonna wrap us up because we'll go on forever. No,
Absolutely.
and I don't want anybody to turn into a pumpkin because we are running a little late. And again, thank you for the discussion coming on with us, and we really hope to connect with you very soon for some other things, and we look forward to everything coming. Why don't you give us everybody a brief shout out where people can find you, more about the nonprofit, and your general social links.
Links. I love it. It's like Fall Guys. No, I'm sorry. And yeah, they can find me on Twitter at VideoGameDoc. They can email me, AnthonyMBeanPhD@gmail.com. I run Leyline Education, which is just geektherapytraining.com. Or have a Facebook group. We have a Facebook page. Just search for The Geek Training, and you'll figure out where we are and all that stuff. Match the logos. You'll find us pretty quick. The Telos Project is the nonprofit I work for. We have tons of cool stuff that we're always doing down there for the community, and we continue to push through during COVID season. And then if anyone wants any of the books that we're doing, they're all on Amazon. We've got Psych of Zelda. We have Psych of Final Fantasy comes out 31st this month. We have the other video gamer guide that you guys have been plastering everywhere, and then we also have our Geek Therapy book coming out, the Clinician's Guide to Using Geek Culture, which is has a lot of the heads of like their fields and stuff talking about a lot of different cool stuff.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna have to get on the mailing list for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you can sign up on our website.
Done.
Trust me, the mailing list has been exploding over the last 4 or 5 months.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That's great. And thank you again for coming on with us. And we hope you'll come on again in the future.
Absolutely. Anytime you guys want me, I'm happy to arrange it in my schedule. Just not on a D&D night.
Would you want to play? Would you be
Sure.
interested in playing D&D with us, though?
That depends on the time, day, and all that stuff. Because to convince my wife, and when we have 2 kids, small kids, to even give me every other week was a 3-week night.
We pull it off once a month. So
Yeah, we're a once a month game
for like 3 hours on a Saturday, well after the kids go to sleep. So we'll be in touch with that.
You be in touch with me.
Sure.
Yeah, as long as you guys don't mind, because I'm playing a chaotic neutral warlock right now, and these things just can't kill me. It's really hilarious because of my pact moon.
Love it. Love it.
And yeah, so probably go paladin next time, just so you know nothing can hit me.
Looking forward to it.
Real, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. And you can also find more of us. We're Guardians MH, Guardians Mental Health. You can follow us on Twitter. You can also find us and follow us for our live recordings on Twitch. We do that every episode. We follow the Twitter to get updates of when we're going to be live. And if you have any questions, concerns, if you need help gathering some resources or whatever, reach out to us on our email, support@guardiansmh.org. And for the podcast, you can listen to us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We also have a wonderful Discord that is great support network, has puts you in contact with mental health professionals in the server, and is just a great resource to have as well, with 24/7 on-demand mental health resources available too. And that is us for the night. Thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Woo!
Thank you.
Hey, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Animal Crossing.